you so much for joining. This video is about purchasing power parity, APPP and RPPP. APPP is the absolute version and RPPP is a relative version. As mentioned before, purchasing power parity is one of the parity conditions. It basically gives you an identification of how exchange rates between two countries should be based on their price levels. What we do is, here you see exchange rate DF, domestic foreign two countries, country A, country B, country D, country F. And then what it says is, depending on the price levels of goods in the country, in country D, over aggregate price levels in country F, should basically reflect their exchange rate. It's based on a basket of goods. If we look at law of one price, which is the fundamental of purchasing power parity, it talks about one good. Yeah, price of one good, good X in country D, price of good X in country F. Purchasing power parity here talks about a basket of goods that we can compare to see whether a basket is more expensive in one country or whether a basket is more expensive in another country, and then what the exchange rate should be. The reason is, for prices of goods in two countries to be equal, the exchange rate between the two countries must change by the difference between domestic and foreign rate of inflation. Because what it means is, if expressed in the same currency, the basket price or the price of goods should be the same. Otherwise, you can sell a product cheap in one country and sell the same product in another country at a higher price. And because we assume the exchange rates adjusts for price levels, which means there's no arbitrage opportunity. Yeah. So what it says identical basket of goods should sell for the same price regardless of where the basket is sold. When expressed in common currency, the price levels should be equal worldwide. Yeah, you know it's not the case if you buy a Big Mac in one country with your home currency after you have exchanged your money in your holiday destination and buy something on an iPhone. It's not the same because transportation, tariffs, trade barriers, which means not the case, but theoretically to get an identification and for some calculation purposes, we can make use of this parity conditions. Under APPP, internal purchasing power equals external purchasing power, which means the amount of goods and services that can be bought with $1 in Australia. If I'm based in Australia, I could use my $1 Australian and buy certain goods of Australia, and amount of goods and services that can be bought with $1 Australian outside of Australia. And this should be the same. $1 Australian should give me the same purchasing power regardless of whether I'm in Australia or whether I am outside of Australia. Yeah, so $1 should have the same purchasing power. We use absolute purchasing power when we ask the question, what should the current exchange rate between two countries be? And let's talk about a product here. Let's talk about coffee. So if we say the price of coffee in the US is $3 and the price of coffee in South Africa is 12 rand, then we would expect our exchange rate to reflect that. So the exchange rate between those two countries would be $3 over 12 rand equals $0.25 per 1 rand. This should be the exchange rate. If we observe that the actual exchange rate is different, here, for example, $0.15 for 1 rand, then we know, okay, the South African rand was actually undervalued, because as per the parity condition, we would expect the rand to have a higher value. But if the actual value is $0.15 per rand, then we can make certain assumptions. If we look at relative purchasing power, which is basically the same concept. The only difference here, we are not talking about the price of a good like we did before when talking about coffee. Here we are talking about inflation levels. And here we are asking us what exchange rate is going to be between two countries over a period of time. Increasing price levels, higher prices, like the coffee example we had, means inflation, means decreasing purchasing power. And decreasing price level, if the goods become less expensive, deflation means your purchasing power with your currency increases. Changes in exchange rates between two currencies reflect changes in the two countries' price levels indicated by inflation. So the question here, how should the exchange rate E0 change? Let's say US has an inflation 10% per year, Australia inflation 4% per year. The current exchange rate is 0.6 US dollar over 1 Australian dollar. Let's say the exchange rate for the next 3 years is what we try to calculate. Then we use a formula here. That is our current exchange rate, 0.6 over Australia dollar. We multiply with the different inflation levels, 10 for US, 4 for Australia dollar. Always use the same numerator and denominator. So for example here our exchange rate is US over AUD. So that's why you need to use US here and AUD in the denominator for 1 year powered 1 equals 0.63. So compared to 0.6, we expect the Australian dollar to appreciate. Yeah, because this is our base currency, that's the currency we talk about. The number is increasing from 0.6 to 0.63, so the number increases, which means the AUD, which is your base currency, is appreciating. Yeah, if we do the same for year 2, for year 3, it's the same formula, just power of 2, power 3. We can see that the Australian dollar is further appreciating here to 0.67 and 0.71. Yeah, and this is again because we would expect, if inflation is changing in one country more rapidly than in another country, the exchange rate needs to adjust for this. Otherwise, there's an arbitrage opportunity where we could again buy products cheaper, sell products at a higher price and make a riskless profit, which then many people would do, and because many people would act upon it, it would create an equilibrium again. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this useful. I see another video. Bye bye.